Welcome to our discussion on tariffs and how local pain can turn into a global game, creating ripple effects across domestic enterprises. This presentation looks at how protective policies ripple through supply chains, pricing, and competitiveness, and why strategic responses matter for firms of all sizes as they navigate rising costs and shifting market dynamics. This slide contrasts the stated aims of tariffs, protecting local industries and raising revenue, with the unintended outcomes that often follow, like input cost inflation and supply chain distortions. What looks like strategic protectionism on paper can reduce economic efficiency in practice. So it's important to weigh national objectives against real global market consequences. Here we focus on how tariffs hit domestic firms, especially mid-sized companies and SMEs. Industry data show an $82 billion rise in import costs tied to tariffs and supply chain pressure, while a 25% tariff erosion effect squeezes retail margins. Small businesses face acute cash flow vulnerability and scale disadvantages, making competitiveness and survival harder under sustained tariff pressure. The supply chain disruption picture shows forced sourcing shifts, longer lead times, and quality variance that translate into real operational pain. About 44% of manufacturers report high-cost uncertainty, and the strategic responses, like reshoring, often raise unit costs and erode margins, so the short-term policy gains can be offset by higher long-term expenses and weaken competitiveness. Our empirical findings show firms reacting quickly to cost pressures. Roughly 60% have raised prices, and many plan further hikes. Pass-through dynamics change if tariffs are viewed as temporary versus permanent. And when firms expect long-term tariffs, the rate of cost pass-through rises. Those embedded costs can lift core consumer inflation by around 0.75 percentage points. The coffee shop example makes the profit squeeze concrete. When imported beans face tariffs, owners can raise prices, shrink portions, or absorb costs and risk losing customers. Each choice reduces profitability or sales, and the visual shows that regardless of the tactic, overall revenue and margin pressure usually worsens for small retailers. Exporters face a double burden from retaliatory duties, market share erosion, and currency effects. Tariffs from trading partners like Canada, Mexico, and China, often in the 15 to 35% range, hit farm and manufactured exports, contributing to lost shipments of soybeans and vehicle parts, while a stronger dollar further worsens U.S. competitiveness and squeezes exporters. When we quantify costs, sectoral output and employment in agriculture and transportation equipment tend to fall under tariff regimes, producing direct losses. Any protective benefits at home can be offset by declines in export revenue, so the net welfare result often tilts negative, as the economy loses more through trade retaliation and reduced global demand than it gains from sheltering certain sectors. The practical playbook for mitigation centers on supply chain flexibility. Map tariff exposure by HTS codes, qualify new low-duty vendors, leverage free trade agreements, and use bonded warehouses to defer payments and improve cash flow. Taken together, these steps create a flexible supply chain that acts as a competitive hedge and reduces duty-driven margin deterioration. On pricing and product strategy, firms can blend models to protect margins. For example, using a hybrid cost and value approach, developing tariff-free private label lines, bundling high-duty items with low-duty accessories to mask cost increases, and communicating changes transparently to customers. These tactics help preserve brand resilience while minimizing the sales damage from price adjustments. Policy uncertainty itself is a major cost driver. Frequent rate changes and legal challenges create a planning fog that leads firms to pause investment, postpone hiring, and freeze resource allocation. The pathway out involves clearer horizons, sunset clauses, negotiated quotas, and reduced macro volatility, so businesses can shift from survival mode back to predictable, growth-oriented planning. In summary, tariffs create a complex ripple effect from raised import costs and higher consumer prices to strained SMEs and pressured exporters. But firms can respond proactively through strategic sourcing, advocacy, and financial hedging. Policymakers face a balancing act between revenue and protection goals, and the risk that uncertainty and output loss may outweigh intended benefits.